Prairie point. It's a 12-inch finished block. Here is the diagram. And this block is a 6x6 grid, which means every square in this grid finishes at 2 inches because it is a 12-inch block. Here are the patches, and this is for rotary cutting. When I give you these instructions here and tell you how big to cut the patches, these are the rotary cutting instructions. So if you have a rotary cutter and a ruler and a mat, you can make these blocks. I purposely choose blocks that can be done that way. Only in a certain instance do you need a special tool. And then I have the AccuQuilt dies that you can use if you own an AccuQuilt. So this is for rotary cutting or for AccuQuilt. The information is the same. The sizes are the same and the number of patches you need are the same. And patch A is a 4-inch finished half square triangle. We cut 4 7/8 inch squares, cut them in half once diagonally, and we get 2 patches. We need 4 patches of these for patch A. And here is patch A. These are these big corner half square triangles. So there are 4 patches here. That means we'll have to cut 2 of these squares and cut each in half once. Then we have 4 patches, 2 for each square. And here is the AccuQuilt dies you can use. Depending on which die you use, some of these dies you can make multiples on one die. Some you can only make one square, which is 2 patches. But this tells you whether you're rotary cutting or AccuQuilt cutting, you need 4 patches. Patch B and C are mostly for the flying geese units here in the side unit. Here is a flying geese and a flying geese. You can either cut each patch separately. Here, in this case, it's the C and the B, and sew these all together. Or you can use the 4 at a time flying geese. So what I've done here is, for the patch B and patch C, I've given you the number of patches you need if you want to cut triangles, and the number of squares you'll need if you want to do the 4 at a time flying geese method. So patch B is a 2-inch finished half square triangle. We cut 2 7/8 inch squares, cut them in half once diagonally to get 2 patches. For this blue fabric, you need 12 patches because we're making half square triangles and flying geese with this. So you'll need to cut 12 patches or just 6 squares. When you cut the squares, you do not subcut them. For the background fabric, you'll need 12 patches or 8 patches plus 2 squares. And here's why you need that. In this corner unit, or all the corner units, you have a half square triangle here, and then you have 2 triangle shapes here. These are the B shapes, the B patch, and it's the 2-inch finished half square triangle. And that's why you are cutting more here. The 8 patches you need are for that unit. And you'll see as we go along and piece the unit. And for this blue fabric, you'll need 8 patches or 4 squares. So the 2 blues here are used in the flying geese because we cut the squares and we don't subcut them. Okay. And here is patch C. Now this is the goose part of the flying geese. It's a 4-inch finished quarter square triangle, and we cut 5 1/4 inch squares. For the patches, you cut them in half twice diagonally, and you'll get 4 patches. Here we need 8 patches, so we'll have to cut 2 of these squares and cut both of them in half twice diagonally to get your 8 patches. Or, if you're using the flying geese 4 at a time, you simply cut 2 squares. So you cut 2 squares at 5 1/4 and do not subcut them. Again, here are the AccuQuilt dies you can use. And finally, patch D is a 4-inch finished square. You cut it 4 1/2 inches. You just need 1 patch. Now note, this might be confusing here, but you'll see in just a minute when we go through the fabrics and we separate them out. Here is what the quilt looks like, sewn block to block. On page 2, we have the step-by-step instructions for piecing the block. The first thing we're going to do are piece these half square triangles here. Then we're going to sew the B patches that we cut separately to each side of the half square triangle. Then we'll sew the large patch A half square triangle, and this makes that corner unit, and we'll do 4 of those. Then we'll go through, and whichever method you want to use, we'll make the flying geese. There are 8 total flying geese, so we'll have 2 sets of 4 at a time flying geese. Then we'll sew the flying geese together like this, and this makes the side unit. We have our side unit and our corner unit, and then a small 1 piece of fabric just goes in the middle. That's our center unit. Now here are the fabrics I've chosen. This is patch A, and it's the large half square triangle. For these triangles, I trim the corners with the Deluxe Corner Trimmer from Marty Michelle. And it just helps with the piecing when you've trimmed these corners. So this patch A is for the corner units. Patch B we're using for the flying geese and the half square triangle, and also the little background triangles in the corner unit. These are the B patches. These are the triangles that go in the background of the corner unit, and they will go like this. 2 of the blue squares and the 2 background squares for the B patches we're going to use to make half square triangles 2 at a time, and these will be in this corner right here for the corner unit. So that's where those go. Then these patches, these 4 patches, will go for the flying geese 4 at a time, and these 4 patches will go for the flying geese 4 at a time. So this is our corner unit, and patch C is the flying geese, the goose part, so we'll put the sky part with both of these. And these are our flying geese 4 at a time, 4 here and 4 here. And then finally here is the center unit. On page 2, step 1 is to make the half square triangle units with the B patches. On the back side of the light fabric, we're going to draw a diagonal line, put the fabrics together, right sides together, and we're going to stitch on either side of the diagonal line. And do that for both of these, and we'll have our 4 half square triangles. Here is the diagonal line drawn, and then the stitching on both sides. Now we cut this in half along the diagonal line. Then we have our 2 half square triangles. Press the seams open and cut off the nubs. Now we're going to follow the diagram on step 2 of page 2. We're going to place one of these triangles like this and the other one like this. This is the only way I can do it without getting confused. And then slip this half square triangle in here. Now let's move this out of the way. Now take this triangle and flip it over like this. And you're going to match this corner here. So put that here and match both of these edges, and then stitch 1/4 inch right here. Now this is the piece you have, and we're going to cut off this nub even with the top. So we cut off this way. We make this even here, and then put this back where it belongs. If I don't do this, I get confused every single time. And then this is going to slide into here. So we match these corners again here. Flip this over. And you'll match this side and this side. And then you're going to stitch right here. And here we have our piece. It's been pressed open. And I'm going to cut this nub off right here. Now we have this part finished. This is half of the half square triangle. The seams are pressed open. I found that it's actually better if you don't trim these corners. Leave them straight and a point like this. Then when you match them, you can match 2 perfect points. So that's just something I found out. We're going to flip this over and match this corner here. So these 2 sides, let's match them. And we're going to stitch this edge here, the long edge of the half square triangle. Now if you put this piece on top, you can see where this point is on the half square triangle, and you can stitch just outside that point to make sure you don't cut that point off. So then just stitch 1/4 inch here and press your seams open. Here is the finished corner unit. I found in piecing this unit to use a scant 1/4 inch and you get a little bit more accurate results. And now I'll trim off the nubs, and there's only one nub here since this part was not trimmed at the corners. Now we'll make a total of 4 of these corner units. Next we're going to take our 2 flying geese sets and make 4 at a time flying geese for a total of 8 flying geese. If you don't know how to do that, stay tuned for a short clip that tells you how to do that. For flying geese 4 at a time, you need 1 large square and 4 small squares. The large square is the geese part of the flying geese, and the small squares are the sky part of the flying geese. On the back of each of the small squares, draw a diagonal line. Place 2 of the small squares like this on the large square, right sides together. You line up these edges and make sure these lines line up. Then you're going to stitch 1/4 inch on both sides of that drawn line. Here are the 2 stitching lines on either side of the marked line, and now we cut it in half on the marked line. Now you'll open these up and press your seams open on both sides. Cut off the nubs. Now you'll place another square in this corner. Here's your diagonal line, and stitch on either side of the diagonal line. And do that for both of these. When you're stitching, your stitches should come out or start right at this point, this intersection here, this 90-degree angle. Cut this in half on the diagonal line, and you have these 2. Press your seams open and cut off your nubs. And do the same for this one. 4 flying geese. We have our 4 quarter units finished, and we have our 8 flying geese finished. Now to make the side unit, we're going to sew together 2 flying geese units like this. And we'll have 4 side units. All the side and corner units are finished, and we just need to put the block together. Piece the units into rows, 3 rows, then sew the rows together, and the block is finished. Thank you for watching.